Welcome to the Rebooting Business podcast, where we discuss how businesses can reboot, rebuild, and come back bigger and stronger than ever before in a post-COVID-19 reality. And now, here's your host, David Somerfleck.
Hello there. My name's David Somerfleck, and I am your host. Thank you for watching or listening to another episode of Rebooting Business, where we talk to business owners, entrepreneurs, service providers, thought leaders, and many, many other types of really interesting people to discuss how businesses and the people who run them can reboot and rebuild during COVID-19 and the crazy world that we find ourselves in right now. This is episode number 25. And this episode is sponsored by the Digital Marketing Specialists online at www.dms.blue. My guest today is Savannah Blake. Savannah, how are you today?
I'm doing well. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Can we start with an introduction of who you are, what you do, and then kind of segue into my other questions?
Sure. So I'm a confidence coach, which is just a life coach that specializes in people who have confidence issues. I mostly help content creators do that. And I'm also a yoga and meditation teacher. So I bring a lot of spiritual aspects, mind-body connection type things to my coaching.
How did you come to focus in on content creators?
I'm a content creator myself, and I've been in the world of content creation for probably 6 or 7 years now. And the community is just, I love the type of people that content creators tend to be. They're passionate, they're creative, they're inspiring, they're motivated, they're just wonderful to be around and wonderful to speak with and help. And yeah. So that's how that happened.
Yeah, they definitely have a need because they're trying to create content, obviously, but they're trying to speak to the needs of who they think their ideal customer or client is or should be. So there's a lot that goes into that more than just writing blog posts.
Absolutely.
And I won't even get started in the technical aspects of that. So I looked at your site and spent some time watching the videos and reading some of your thoughts on different things. And on your site, you talk about being very shy and feeling awkward. Why do you think that you felt that way? I mean, why was that?
So I was the subject of bullying both at school and at home for my entire life. So a lot of my problems came from being told that I was never good enough, to being shushed constantly, being told that essentially my voice didn't matter, my opinions didn't matter. I would be rushed through stories. Nobody acted like anything I said mattered. Just little things that affect us as children on a daily basis to pile up one on top of another. And, if you get somebody like me who overthinks absolutely everything, it can get worse and worse and worse. So we experience things in life, and my defense mechanism was to shut down and in an effort to protect myself. So I stopped talking, I stopped looking at people, I stopped moving, really. I made myself as small as I possibly could, sat at the back of the back corner of the room with my headphones in, listening to music with a book in front of my face as an effort to just, make myself as small as possible. I was terrified somebody would notice I exist.
Oh, well, that's terrible. So what brought you to the point where you are now, where you are obviously coming out of that?
Right. It's been a really long journey, and I can't say there was any one thing that helped me develop who I am now, but it was several things, starting with when I was finally able to get out into the quote unquote real world and get a job. You know, I grew up in a one horse town where everybody knows their whole family, knows their cousin and what they did 10 years ago. So nobody actually has to get to know you when you live in a small town because they already know who you are. And so I went from this to a place where suddenly I was around people who didn't already know who I was for the first time in my life. So they actually had to talk to me to figure out who I was and if they liked me. So they would talk to me and I would talk back, and they started acting like I was an okay person and pretty cool. So I started questioning my own beliefs about who I was, and I was like, well, maybe I am not so bad. Maybe I am actually kind of okay, because I had always been terrified that I was annoying, that I was bothering people, so I just didn't talk to them. And then here these people were acting like I was actually pretty cool to talk to, so it just kind of made me start thinking about who I was and why I was and all of that. And a couple of these people, they became my chosen family of the time. We've grown apart since, like all good coworkers do. But since we were servers at a restaurant, and I worked there for 6 years, so we were very close knit, packed in all the time. And these people became, I guess, my surrogate family, and they started, I don't know, maybe they saw potential in me or what, but they would put me in situations where it was either step up and perform or crawl in a corner and die from embarrassment.
Right.
So,
And it helped you.
yeah, absolutely. So like we would be in a group setting, and one of them would be putting on a presentation, you know, this is how you do this is what this is about, and all of that. And then, and I'm talking like 15-ish or so people, maybe more, maybe less, depending on the time. And in the middle of their presentation, they would be like, okay, and now I'm going to let Savannah tell you about XYZ. And I'm like, well, what? We didn't talk about this. But now they've just put me on the spot. So I kind of have to either step up or step out. And so I just always chose to work through the fear, through the anxiety. So I'm like, okay, I can't breathe. I'm shaking. I'm sweating. I can feel the heat in my face. Tunnel vision is setting in. Everything around here is getting dark, and I'm focusing right here. You know, things
Right.
are coming in and out of focus, but I'm still just, you know, words are coming out of my mouth because it's sink or swim. And so I really thank them for putting me in those absolutely terrible and traumatizing situations so that I could become who I am today.
Yeah, it's almost like the mind was self-sabotaging itself somehow.
Always.
And
My mind is always self-sabotaging.
now, at what point did you start getting into meditation? And did that help?
Okay, so meditation has absolutely been the biggest factor, the change I've made in overcoming who I was and turning into who I am. And it's been a long road. I've been studying meditation for at least 8 years, give or take. I have very little concept of time, so, but anyway, at first I was really confused by it, right? Like you can find tons of guided visualizations and whatnot on YouTube and on media platforms. People just upload their meditations. So that's great, you know, okay, so you're walking me through this visualization, but what is the point? What are we trying to
Right,
accomplish?
exactly.
And right, and nobody could really tell me. I
Mm.
Googled and Googled and Googled and couldn't come up with anything. And if you Google the definition of meditation, it's the act of meditating is what you get. So
Yeah, I would tend to, I would definitely agree with you insofar as seeing that. What is the purpose of meditation, truthfully? I mean, if you know, you're going to get a different question from every person. You know, I have that picture behind me on the wall because it's kind of like a reminder to me to try to be like that. You can't do it all the time. I mean, of course, but to try to remember that And I think the purpose is to try to find some middle ground, you know?
It took me a really long time to figure out. Maybe it's unique to each individual. Maybe that's why we have such a hard time finding, what this is for, because you can look up the benefits of meditation and they're a mile long.
Yeah.
I've come to believe that it means learning to control your emotions and your mind. So we're not, people think that it's a matter of clearing your mind and sitting completely motionless for hours on end, cross-legged on a mountain with wind chimes in the background.
Right.
And they're like, how am I supposed to do this? I have children. But
You can't.
really, you not like that, you can't. And unless you're a Buddhist monk, nobody has that kind of time to just sit around and meditate all the time. If you're trying to actually be a normal person and live a normal, somewhat normal life, we're busy, especially these days, much more so than we used to be. And there's so much to do. So I had to adapt my own practice to my own lifestyle, and that's exactly what everybody needs to do. There are tons of different types of meditations. There's passive and active. So cleaning or taking a walk, if you're not listening to anything and you're just being in the present moment, maybe directing your mind towards a certain thing or whatnot, that is meditating. So, so I have 2 small children, and I started out, the 10-minute shower I got was a meditation. And then the 5 minutes before I went to bed, I would lay down in bed and center myself. And it's all mind work. It's all mindset work.
Yeah, I agree totally. I think the other day I took a paperback and just go and, I just went out to just sit, look at the lake and read a book and just hope that I'm not accosted by some delivery guy or something, or, something like that, while you're just going to read and then in between look at the lake. I've heard of waking meditation where you're just doing calm, quiet, contemplative work. Could be working on a painting. It could be working on a song. It could be trying to write a short story or a book or program something. Just something that you can lose yourself in, that's calm and kind of contemplative. So what effects did doing this have on you over time?
Well, when we're able to create space for us to just sit and be, our mind naturally wanders. So
Yeah.
even though I've only been studying meditation for like the past 8 years, I've come to realize that I've actually been practicing it my entire life. Because I wasn't talking to anybody and I didn't have any friends and I was just alone with myself and the walls and the books, and, internet was a very new thing and really didn't even get going until I was a teenager. So, I had a lot of time to just sit and think, which is essentially what meditation is, just sitting and thinking about who you are, how you are, and why you are. And as I got older and these questions in my head, the who you are, how you are, why you are, because we all are asking the question, who am I? That's what we're all looking for. We're all trying to figure out who we are in this life.
Yeah.
And it went from, why is my life the way it is? Why was I dealt these cards? Why do these things happen to me? To, oh, okay, I understand now that caused me to act this way because it caused me to believe this way. So
Right.
it's just breaking down your beliefs and your mindset and why you are the way you are, and identifying what's true and what's been planted there from outside sources.
And I think that part that you said at the end is really key, trying to identify what's true for you and why. And when you talk about content creators, that's a huge, huge part for them, because they need to know what to write about, who to write for, And if they don't know themselves and they don't know who they're trying to reach, then how do they move forward?
Absolutely. It's all an expression of who we are as individuals. And the clearer we are on who we are as individuals, the better we can express that out into the world and speak to the people that we were meant to speak to. I hope that it started raining, and I hope it's not too loud on the tin roof.
No, not at all. That explains
Okay,
any kind of audio confusion or whatever. And I think that kind of is a nice disruption. I'd rather have the rain than, a mouse scurrying across the keyboard or something. I mean, I think that's really a big part, because if I work with a client for digital marketing, the number one stumbling block is, who are you in comparison to competitors? So we have some way to differentiate you. 9 times out of 10, they don't know.
right.
They're focusing in on, how can I get from point A to point B, but I don't know what point B is. So I don't know how to value getting to point B. So you don't know if you get there. So how do you think meditation fills in those gaps? And then I want to get a little bit deeper into what you do more specifically.
Sure. So, you mentioned competitors and differentiating yourself from them. There's no such thing as competition anymore. If beforehand, I mean, we can say, there's these tires and then there's these tires. Those are obviously in competition with one another for your vehicle. But these tires are meant for this, and then those tires are meant for that. So what are you going to do with your vehicle? And it's kind of the same concept. Especially as content creators, we pour our heart and soul into our form of art. This podcast is an art form, just like any other. And it's not going to resonate with some people, but then other people are going to be like, wow, this really connects to me. And so when you can meditate on who you are, how you are, and why you are, you can pull out the pieces that you have been expressing that aren't actually your truth. And you can narrow it down to what is your truth. For example, one of my old branding things was stars, universe, that kind of thing. So it was like planets and really spacey. And although I really liked that aspect of things, and you're sure that rain's not too bad?
I can hear you just fine. I'm hoping that, people watching this, can hear it just fine, or turn the volume up, and people listening on their MP3 players or their phones can turn the volume up.
All right,
please continue.
Okay, so even though I really liked the stars and the moons, and it definitely played into the type of content I was talking about, the energy, the meditation, all of that, the manifesting with the moon, the zodiacs, that kind of stuff, it wasn't my truth per se. So my brand now is much more me, and it's earthy, it's gardening, flowers, because in my spare time I garden. I spend a lot of time in my garden every day. So that was more me than sitting and staring at the clouds, So it's just
Right.
learning who you are so that you can express it consistently. If I'm over here with some flowers, and then I'm over here with some stars, and then I'm over here with hearts, and then I'm over here with a different pattern, and then now we're talking about football. There are a ton of aspects to who we are, but we need to narrow it down to some basic patterns, some basic aspects, so that we can be consistent, so that we know exactly who we're talking to. The spacey, the stars, the zodiacs, astrology, that kind of stuff is going to attract clients who are more into the spiritual aspects, whereas my earthy, natural type of branding is going to attract people who are more into the concrete type, physical, I don't know, earthy, natural type, holistic world, if that makes sense.
Right. Yeah, it does make sense because what you put out there, what's that saying? The type of honey you put out is the type of bee you're going to attract. So, I had a very similar thing where, I had one type of branding, and then I just thought, this isn't who I want to attract. I don't want to be known as the WordPress guru guy. I want to be able to help people with legitimate businesses, not do-it-yourselfers who are wondering why they're doing everything by themselves, but they're not getting anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
People who are ready to, okay, what do I have to do to get some traction? And so I changed it, and hopefully it's being effective. And the important thing is to recognize that and try. So on your site, you talk about helping clients, and you actually have a pretty thorough outline of what you cover. So I'd like to get into that and ask you to kind of speak to that a little bit and put some meat on the bones of it. Can you go over that briefly with each segmented offering that you do and kind of what that means? And to give you and those listening or watching, this is earthandwater.co. And I went to a page called New Year, New You, New Life. So the first part is the battle plan. So do you remember that part?
I am pulling it up right now so that I can look with you.
The battle plan. Where are you going? Your ideal life, your emotions. I mean, that's a lot right there.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So how do you onboard these people to get them to a point where they're saying, okay, Savannah, I'm not scared of you. I'm not intimidated. I can talk to you and not feel like, whoa. How do you get them to that point and then segue into this and making it relevant to them?
Yeah, well, it's just about building trust, like it is with any relationship. You wouldn't walk up to a random stranger on the street and be like, "Will you marry me?" And it's the exact same thing.
No, I don't think so.
Yeah, it's the exact same thing with this kind of a client relationship, no matter what you're providing for your clients. It's the same thing.
I guess people do that, but go ahead.
Yeah, they probably don't get very far with it, though.
No, and it goes right back to the whole business owner thing where I want to be number one into Google, but I don't have any money, or I want to get more customers, but I don't know who my ideal customer is. Maybe that's stretching, but you need to get them to kind of relax a little bit so you can find out what is the foundation. So how do you get into these first battle plan steps? Do you use a workbook, or does this process take several days?
Oh, the whole thing will take a minimum of 3 months to get through.
Whoa.
The whole program. Yeah. And it may take some people longer if they're, super busy, if they're not super focused, if they're not disciplined enough to make themselves do the work. But we go through a series of exercises, and most of them are journaling prompts and accompanied by meditation. And we have a Trello board, and we go step by step. So it's self-paced, and when you finish one section, then I'll go over it, we'll talk about it, we'll discuss it, we'll see if it's solid, if it has any holes, if there's anything in it that needs addressing, and then we'll move on to the next point. So it's just a step-by-step process.
Okay. So I know the progress over perfection section, you talk about standing between where you are and where you want to go. How do you identify that?
Well, It depends on what your certain goals are. And we cover that in the battle plan. In the battle plan first section, we are establishing our goals, figuring out what exactly it is that we want to accomplish, because a lot of us are setting goals that don't actually go with what we're trying to do.
Mm.
You know, the examples I always use are, we know we want money, but why do we want money? Money is just a means goal to get to the end goal. So what we actually want is purpose, acceptance, love, peace, happiness, free time, those types of things.
Do you think too many people want those things for self-gratification or the ego, as opposed to, I need to be able to pay the mortgage and put food on the table?
Well, it's absolutely both. It's absolutely both. But the type of clients I work with personally are not generally concerned about where their next meal is going to come from, or where they're going to have the free time or the space or the energy to, find a babysitter or do their projects. The people I work with already have their stability in place. They're wanting to express their voice and make a difference in the world. Oftentimes they've come from a place similar to my own, to where they weren't listened to. They see all of the things that's wrong in the world, and they want to help do their part in making the world a better place for everybody else. So there's definitely space for that for both of them. My coaching packages are going to aim towards people who already have a secure, quote unquote, secure lifestyle. Whereas my free content is where I kind of break down, if I absolutely cover things in my content about how to do things when you're broke, how to how to organize and manage, meal plans in life when you don't have any extra cash or extra time. I'm a mom who has, I have two small children. We started from scratch. We didn't have anything out the gate. And there was absolutely times where I was staring at this bell pepper and this bell pepper, and there was a 50 cents difference in them.
Mm-hmm.
And the organic one I knew was better for me and my family, but that's 50 cents, and that 50 cents is important. So I've totally been there, and I totally have content that helps people get more off of that. But if you're struggling with living paycheck to paycheck and trying to gain money as a means to take care of you and your family, I'm not sure going into the journey of trying to help other people is where you need to be just yet, because you have to put your own gas mask on first.
Right, because they're going to be at a point where they're just struggling to survive. Forget about trying to, achieve an objective, because right now your short-term objective is keeping a roof over your head, and are you going to have ramen for dinner or Spam?
Yeah.
And that's a place where a lot of people are. But I don't want to say you can't help them, but you really can't, because they're not going to be someone who is a good fit.
Right. And I can put free content out there and help them if they want to go through and read and try to learn, try to implement some of these things themselves. But I myself am not the coach for them, because, our time is our most valuable resource. And if I spent every bit of my time, if I took on 35 clients and spent 8 hours a day just talking to them and helping them and trying to help them, then I wouldn't have time for my children to teach them to read, or, so we really have to, as business owners, we have to know where our boundaries are and utilize ways to help those who can't, purchase our services. But also, I like to So I have that free content out there for them. But then my coaching package is for people who have already helped themselves in that area and they're looking to help more people. So by me helping me coaching these people in how to get their voice out there, how to get their message out there in order to help people, I'm helping more people in that way. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. And that kind of takes us to the worthy cause, where the whole scarcity versus abundance mindset.
Absolutely.
I don't know about you, but I hear that every day. And I may hear it from 5 or 6 people every day. Most of the clients, or potential clients, I should say, who contact me, you can't help and you cannot work with. And most of them are nonprofit organizations, because the mantra is always, we have no money. Everything has to be free, but we don't really know what we want or why we want it. And even if you volunteer to help them, what will it benefit me? Can you do an introduction? No. What is why would I do this? How do you get through that? And I don't know if that's a fair question to ask you.
It's a hard one for sure.
And
we're all...
I'm sorry, I want you to go ahead. I want to hear what you have to say on that, because I think there's a lot more depth to that with what we're going through as a country, at least in the U.S. And I know a lot of other people are going through in other countries right now.
Yeah, so I've absolutely had nonprofits reach out to me and want help and need things. And, most people want to help. They want to do the right thing. They want to give. A lot of people don't because they don't know how. So in a lot of ways, people would go above and beyond to help out everybody they can. But we see those people, we all know somebody who is super nice. They say yes to everything. They help out everywhere. They're putting the get-togethers together, and then they're cooking 8 things, and then they're cleaning everything up, and they're just busy all the way, all time, go, go, go. And these same people are often, if you pay attention to what they're saying and how they're acting, most of the time they're the type of people who are apologizing for existing. They're like, oh, sorry, I was on your way. Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to, and it comes from people pleasing. And when we know our worth and our time, then we can differentiate that, yes, we do want to help everybody, but we have to take care of ourselves first. And so, we want to help the nonprofits, but maybe we can put things in place to get more people to be more generous. Let's see, how am I trying to explain this? By saying no to the nonprofit, it opens me up space to work with somebody who can teach others how to be of service. Like I said, most people want to help, but they don't know how. If we can get this information out there through our content, through serving with a purpose, of good and betterment for everybody involved, as long as you're coming from this heart-centered place of trying to help and trying to be of service, then things work themselves out for the better through the ripples of our actions.
How do you think that ties into where we are right now? Because, this whole podcast is about trying to help business owners, entrepreneurs reboot during a very, very tumultuous time right now in history. Almost every country has got their economy on the skids. Every economy is dealing with COVID. The U.S. seems to be having a much, much worse time of it than just about every other country on the planet. If you go by Johns Hopkins University, and basically every major news source in the world, the U.S. is number 1 in the number of cases. How does that kind of tie into all of this? to help, the business owner, the restaurant owner, the lawyer, the service provider who's sitting at home saying, where do I begin?
So the internet is wonderful because it brings us anything that we need to know in this time. And the biggest thing that you should know when starting is that if you believe you can, or if you believe you can't, whichever, you're correct. So you have to go
Right.
into things with an optimistic, positive attitude. If you're like, oh man, my business is done, COVID has wiped it out, there's nothing left for me, my life's work is finished, poor me, yeah, that sucks, but that doesn't mean that it's done. It just means that it's in a shift, where we're changing. People, we get stuck in sameness. We feel safe in sameness. And when things happen, we just completely shut down. We freak out. We can't cope with it. But the truth is that safety, security, sameness, it's all an illusion. Security can fall through tomorrow. Nothing is impenetrable. The only constant in life is change. So you have to be adaptable, especially as an entrepreneur, as a business owner. We absolutely have to be adaptable because, laws are always changing. The world is always changing. Um, Innovations are always changing the way things are needed and the way things are done. So that's mindset is absolutely number one. Believing that you can find a way to adapt. And then it's just a matter of Googling, talking to your peers. If you're a tire company, contact your other tire company down the road, your competitor, and ask them, is there a way that we can work something out to where it mutually benefits both of us?
Yeah.
I see that you have some tires for off-roaders. Well, I have some tires for luxury cars,
And
and we'll bring them together.
that's marketing 101. When I used to,
Absolutely.
there was a period of time when I was working in between, marketing agencies, and I would hustle like crazy. And in marketing, they used to call that piggybacking.
Mm-hmm.
And you would form partnerships or alliances with others. And I will never forget, I saw this incredible example. This is just one that comes to mind. It was a lawyer. And I remember talking to him, and he said, I just can't get any clients. He was a divorce lawyer. And I remember thinking, oh my God, I wouldn't wish divorce on anybody. I can only imagine what that would feel like to go through and everything. And I was talking to him at some networking event, and he said, he was complaining, I just can't get any clients. And I said, well, why don't you create a singles group for people who are going through divorce or who have gone through divorce, make it free. And then while you're there at the beginning and at the end, discuss your services. And the people who are going through hell on earth, you can offer them your card, give them a free consultation, and there you go. He took it, he ran with it. And the next thing you know, he was having weekly singles events like at the local cafe. I can't remember what it was, but it was like a Bob's Big Boy or something, or Panera Bread or something. And every week he had this big event, and there were like 50 people would come. And he said, I'm still not getting anybody. And I said, oh, that's so sad. Just keep doing it every week. And after like 2 or 3 months, I saw him at some other networking event. And he said he was combing them out of his hair. And I said, I can't relate to that part, but I'm really glad for you. But it was piggybacking, calling people up, emailing them, and just saying, I'm open to collaboration and partnering. Is there any way that you could do this, that you could think of, that we could look at it like a Rubik's Cube and team up? And I've been in marketing for at least 20 years. And I can honestly tell you, I could count on one hand the number of people who are receptive to that. Most people are not receptive to that idea at all. They're worried you're going to take their $1 million idea.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
You're going to take their $1 million idea that they can't seem to make go anywhere, of course, and you're going to make $1 million with it overnight. And they just can't see any way to do it. And you could try to convince them, or you could just say, God bless you. What's for lunch? Or can I get on another Zoom or Skype call and talk to someone else? So at what point do you cut bait, as they say?
Well, that comes back to mindset as well, because those people, those type of business people are coming from a place of self. They're like, how can this
Scarcity.
benefit me?
Yeah.
Absolutely. And when you flip the script and you're like, when you go into collaborations with a heart-centered position, it's not, what can y'all do for me? It's, how can we come together and help the client?
Yeah.
Because it should always be about the client. It should, you know, Scarcity says you're going to steal from me, but abundance says, hey, let's make this work for everyone. There's always plenty of resources. There's just not enough for everyone's greed. And when you come into it and looking to help the client, then those are the types of collaborations that you want anyway. If one person, okay, the scarcity mindset is absolutely the majority. That's what
Yeah.
you said. I agree with that. But you don't need 500, you don't need 10
No,
collaborations.
you do not.
You need like 2 really good ones,
Yeah.
or 5 really good ones. And if it takes you a while to find those really good ones, that's okay too, because when you do find them, you both are going to connect and you are both going to build things above and beyond for your clientele, and everybody's going to prosper, because abundance, money, all of that follows value. So if you're providing value to your clients, to your customers, it's going to show in what you give them, and the abundance is going to flow back to you from that.
That makes sense. That's a pretty good point, I think. So if you were applying to this to a typical business owner right now, you would tell them, what would you tell them?
Can you give me some more context? Applying.
Let's say you're talking to a typical business owner right now who's saying, my business is on the rocks. We didn't plan for COVID. We don't know how to accommodate it. What should we do?
Right. So, okay. It just comes back to being adaptable. I would tell them, first of all, we have to be positive. Our business is not on the rocks. Our business is in a shift. We're shifting. Now we need to figure out where we're shifting to. Okay, who is our client? What are they dealing with right now? How can we accommodate what they're dealing with in regards to our services or our products? Do we need to move online where we weren't before? Do we need to put out an offer that's new? Do we need to tweak this or that? It's just about brainstorming, really. Get your business partners, if you have those, which comes back to the collaborations I was speaking of. Once you get in a room with these people who are dealing with the same problems that you're dealing with, there's Facebook groups for everything.
Yeah.
Find your peers, find your competitors, hang out with them, ask a question. Ask them, say, I've been dealing with this lately. Anybody else noticing that? Do you have any ideas on how to accomplish that? And Facebook groups are great for this, because you can ask that question, and a lot of people are going to be helpful. People want to talk about the thing that they think about all the time. So if you ask them a business question, most people are like, oh, let me answer. So, just mastermind with people, talk to people.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with you. And I think that kind of takes us full circle into unlocking what we used to call the unique selling. I think it was the unique selling proposition. What makes the individual business or person stand out? What they bring to the equation.
Businesses are becoming more humanized. We're realizing that people want that human feature to the business. They buy two people may offer the exact same product, and we'll say physical product. There's nothing different between this thing and that thing, except for the people who are selling it. And this person's a jerk, but this person's really nice. They're going to go with the nice person every time. And, in another sense, people selling their services and whatnot, they're sharing their stories behind it, and people who were the jock in high school, prom queen, had all the material things, all the love, they're not going to relate to me. They're going to be like, oh man, you got a sad story. I'm going to go over here where things are not sad. But somebody who grew up shy, bullied, feeling unheard, feeling small, read a lot of books, was kind of a geek or a nerd or whatever, unpopular kid, they're going to look at me and be like, wow, you're my person. You get me. So, nobody can compete with who we are. So we got to bring who we are to our business. And that just makes all the difference in the world. Nobody wants to talk to a computer.
Yeah. And I think the more you do that, the easier it'll be for you and the more focused you become. And
Absolutely.
That's kind of the definition of niche marketing, where it's like, the more you're focusing in on who you are, being your most authentic self, and then you can attract others who want that and who resonate with that. So let me tie things up and just, say, are there any other points that you would like to add to this?
Talking about the niche thing, I hated niches. Most people hate niches. They have a really bad rap. They're like, how can I take the million pieces that are me and all of the, especially, us entrepreneurs are so multi-passionate by nature. We want to explore, want to share all of the things, know all of the things. And, how do you pick one of those things? And so I always tell my clients, it's okay if you want to shift to something later. We're going to think of this as a short-term moment for the long-term business. And so you don't have to pick one thing to stick with forever and ever and ever right now. Yeah. Can you pick one thing or maybe two things that tie together to focus on for the next 3 to 6 months? And then once we get that under control, then we'll take a step back, look at it, see how things are going. Do we want to add this over here, or do we want to shift over here? Is this not working anymore? And it's an evolving process. Just as we are constantly evolving. I'm not the same person I was last week, and I'll be somebody completely different in 5 years. We all will.
Right.
We're always interacting with life. Life is always influencing us. We're always having new thoughts, new aha moments that are shifting our mindset and who we are from one thing to the next. So just like we are malleable, everything in this world is malleable, and it all goes through its seasons. So don't get stuck in the trying to box yourself. You don't have to box yourself. Yeah, that's just what I wanted to speak on about niches and whatnot, because it really scares people and it sends them off, and they become anti-niche, and they're like, oh, I'm just going to be a lifestyle blogger. And then they do that for, 5 years and get zero traction, and they don't understand why. And it's because, if you're a lifestyle blogger, what kind of lifestyle? What do I don't know anything coming into.
Exactly.
How do I know I want what you have?
Yeah, exactly. The more specific you are, the easier it becomes for people to find you. And the more you can differentiate yourself, the easier it is, So I think those are very, very valid points. Well, I really, really appreciate your time. And I think you gave us some really, really good content to really think over. And I appreciate it. And do you have any parting thoughts, and how can people get in touch with you?
So parting thoughts is, please remember that you have to believe in yourself. That is absolutely the first step. If you don't believe you can get it, then you never will. You have to believe something and then hold on to it even when doubt is everywhere.
Yeah.
And trust me, as an entrepreneur, doubt will come from everyone, everything, everywhere. But yeah, you can find me at my website, earthandwater.co. I'm also, and all my links are on there for social media. We have a Facebook group and a YouTube channel, Twitter, Instagram, like all of it's on there. But if you want to go straight to my social handles on Twitter and Instagram, it's earth_water.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for your time, Savannah. Please stick around with me for another minute or two, and I will tie this episode up. Thank you, everyone, for watching or for listening. If you enjoyed this, please give it a thumbs up. If you're a listener or a viewer, please consider subscribing. Every little bit helps. And stay safe out there, everybody, and take care.
You've been listening to Rebooting Business, the podcast for, about, and by America's small business owners who are ready to reboot and rebuild businesses in a post-COVID-19 world. To learn more about rebooting your business or be a guest on the podcast, please visit www.dms.blue today.